Whenever we make a video, people often ask the same question. What is the source of all this information? The truth is, the foundation of Islamic history doesn't come from rumors or guesswork. It comes from books, great works written centuries ago. Among the most recognized are Tariq al-Tabari, Ibn al-Athir, Ibn Kathir, and Ibn Khaldun. But there is a deeper question. What are the sources of these books themselves? Where did these monumental works of history originate from? The story of how Islamic history was recorded is as fascinating as history itself. After the passing of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the first caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, may Allah be pleased with them, did not write an official history of Islam. Why? Because at that time, there was no need. Most of the companions were still alive. They had witnessed the battles, the victories, and the struggles with their own eyes. The history lived within them. But as time passed, the companions began to leave this world. New generations of Muslims were growing up, and many of them started forgetting the great battles of Badr, Uhud, and Khandaq. Some even became more impressed by the heroes of Rome and Persia, Hercules and Rustam, than by the warriors of Islam such as Khalid ibn al-Walid or Ali ibn Abi Talib. This was the beginning of a new challenge, preserving Islamic history for future generations. To tackle this challenge, a visionary caliph emerged, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He realized that the new Muslim generations needed a record of their heroes and their struggles. So he summoned one of the great scholars of his time, Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri. Umar gave him a mission: travel among the people and teach them the life of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUah. Ibn Shihab collected knowledge from the last living companions and began to pass it down to his students. Among these students were two names the world still remembers: Ibn Ishaq and Imam Malik. In fact, Ibn Shihab himself compiled the very first written book of Islamic history. But tragedy struck. Shortly after completing it, Caliph Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was assassinated, and soon after, the book itself disappeared from history. After the fall of the Umayyad dynasty, a new empire emerged, the Abbasid Caliphate. The Abbasids, unlike many rulers before them, had a deep passion for knowledge. They valued books and scholarship so highly that one Abbasid ruler is said to have ended a war with the Romans in exchange for a single book of philosophy by Plato. Under the Abbasids, a new capital was founded, Baghdad. It wasn't just a city, it became the cultural and intellectual heart of the Muslim world. At its center stood the House of Wisdom, Bait al-Hikmah, the largest library of its time. Here, Caliph al-Mansur commissioned Ibn Ishaq, the student of Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, to write a comprehensive history of Islam. This was not just about the Prophet's life. The order was to cover history from the time of Adam all the way to their present day. Ibn Ishaq fulfilled this task, producing the first complete historical chronicle of Islam. But once again, fate was cruel. Ibn Ishaq's monumental book disappeared over time. Today, only references and partial versions remain. One major reason many of the early Islamic history books vanished was the lack of durable writing material. At that time, Muslims did not yet know the art of making paper. Books were written on expensive and fragile parchment, which was difficult to preserve. The secret of papermaking was guarded tightly by the Chinese Empire. For centuries, China was the only civilization producing paper, and they protected this knowledge as a state secret. But history changed when Muslims and the Chinese clashed in a great battle. The Muslim army emerged victorious and captured thousands of Chinese soldiers. Among them were artisans who knew the craft of papermaking. Through these prisoners, Muslims learned the long-guarded secret of turning plant fibers into sheets of paper. When Caliph Harun al-Rashid realized the power of this technology, he immediately established the world's largest paper factory in Baghdad, right beside the House of Wisdom. This invention sparked a revolution. For the first time, books could be copied quickly and widely. Islamic scholars no longer feared their works would vanish. Every manuscript could now be multiplied and spread across the Muslim world. This moment marked the beginning of what history remembers as the Islamic Golden Age. With the arrival of paper, knowledge flourished across the Muslim world. Baghdad became a city of scholars, poets, scientists, and historians. In every corner of the empire, books were being written, copied, and studied. This was the age when the 6 great collections of hadith, including Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, were compiled. It was also the era when the earliest complete histories of Islam appeared. Ibn Hisham rewrote and preserved the work of his teacher Ibn Ishaq, ensuring that the life of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, would survive in written form for generations to come. His book is still available today, making it the oldest surviving biography of the Prophet. Other historians soon followed. Al-Waqidi documented the battles and lives of the companions. His student, Ibn Sa'd, compiled Kitab al-Tabaqat al-Kubra, which preserved the biographies of hundreds of early Muslims. Then came the monumental work of Imam al-Tabari. His History of Prophets and Kings, known simply as Tariq al-Tabari, stretched from the time of Adam to his own era. It was the most comprehensive chronicle of Islamic history ever written, and it cemented Tabari's place as one of the greatest historians of the medieval world. By this time, knowledge had become a status symbol. Scholars were celebrated with the same fame and respect that modern societies reserve for sports stars or celebrities. This was the intellectual peak of the Muslim world. But as history shows us, no golden age lasts forever. As the Abbasid Caliphate slowly weakened, a new threat emerged from the West: the Crusades. Christian armies, inspired by the Pope, marched toward the Holy Land and captured Jerusalem. For many Muslim rulers of the time, this loss brought little concern, but the scholars felt the pain deeply. Among them was Imam Ibn Asakir, a giant of his age, whose writings filled more than 70 volumes. In Damascus, he reminded his students that one day, Palestine would be liberated again. One of his young students carried these lessons to heart, a man who would later change the course of history, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Salahuddin rose to power not just as a warrior, but as a leader shaped by knowledge. Leading an army of 200,000, he marched toward Palestine. After years of struggle, he defeated the Crusaders and reclaimed Jerusalem. The liberation of the Holy City became his legacy. Even today, the name Salahuddin echoes across the Muslim world as a symbol of courage, faith, and justice. Alongside Salahuddin fought another great historian, Ibn al-Athir. While he joined battles on the field, he also wrote one of the most important chronicles of Islamic history. In his book, he recorded not only the victories of Salahuddin, but also the story of the first Muslim ruler who entered India, Sultan Shahabuddin Gauri. For a time, Muslims seemed unstoppable, winning victories from Palestine to India. But history was preparing another storm, one greater than the Crusades, greater than Rome or Persia. It was a storm from the east. The Mongols were coming. The 13th century brought with it the most devastating force the Muslim world had ever faced: the Mongols. From the steppes of Central Asia, Genghis Khan and his descendants unleashed terror across continents. Entire cities were burned, and millions were slaughtered. No empire seemed strong enough to resist their advance. At last, the Mongol armies reached the heart of the Islamic world: Baghdad, the jewel of the Abbasid Caliphate and the center of the Golden Age. In 1258, they stormed the city. For days, blood filled the streets. The House of Wisdom, that great library of knowledge, was destroyed. Thousands of manuscripts, the treasures of centuries, were thrown into the river. Historians wrote that the waters of the Tigris turned black with ink from the ruined books and red with the blood of scholars who had preserved them. It seemed as though the Golden Age had ended forever. The Abbasid Caliphate collapsed, and the dream of Baghdad as the capital of knowledge was shattered. Yet even in this darkness, historians did not stop writing. One of the most brilliant minds of this era was Ibn Khaldun. Living in North Africa, far from Baghdad's destruction, he observed the rise and fall of empires and created something no one had done before: the science of history itself. In his famous Muqaddimah, Ibn Khaldun explained why dynasties grow, why they collapse, and how history moves in cycles. Many modern scholars call him the father of sociology and historiography. So even as Baghdad fell, Islamic scholarship found new life in unexpected places. After the devastation of the Mongol invasions, a new power slowly rose in Anatolia: the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans did not just build one of the longest-lasting empires in history, they also became guardians of Islamic knowledge. They preserved the works of earlier historians, copied thousands of manuscripts, and ensured that the legacy of Islamic scholarship survived. In Istanbul, magnificent libraries and schools were established. Ottoman historians such as Mustafa Naima and Ibrahim Petsevi documented the rise of their empire, while also safeguarding the works of scholars from the Abbasid and Andalusian periods. It was under the Ottomans that the scattered manuscripts of Tabari, Ibn al-Athir, Ibn Kathir, and Ibn Khaldun were collected, copied, and preserved for future generations. Without this effort, much of what we know today about early Islamic history might have been lost forever. For nearly 6 centuries, the Ottomans stood as the political and cultural center of the Muslim world. Their preservation of history ensured that when the empire finally declined, the intellectual heritage of Islam did not vanish with it. The torch of knowledge had been carried across generations, from the Companions to the Abbasids, through the chaos of the Crusades and Mongols, and now safeguarded by the Ottomans. But the modern world was about to change history once again. Printing presses, colonial invasions, and a new global order would reshape how Islamic history was studied, remembered, and narrated. As the modern age dawned, the Muslim world faced new challenges: colonial powers, political upheavals, and the decline of old empires. Yet through it all, the legacy of Islamic historians endured. European scholars, encountering the works of Ibn Khaldun, Tabari, Ibn Kathir, and others, were astonished at the depth and sophistication of their methods. Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah was translated into multiple languages, inspiring modern sociology, economics, and political science. Meanwhile, printing presses spread across the Muslim world. What had once been rare handwritten manuscripts were now published as printed books, accessible to students and researchers across continents. Today, almost every major library in the world holds translations and copies of these great Islamic histories. the questions that echo in our time are the same as before. How do we preserve our past? How do we pass on the stories of our heroes to the next generation? The answer lies in what history itself has taught us. Knowledge must be written, preserved, and shared. From the companions who carried memories, to Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who began the effort, to scholars like Ibn Ishaq, Tabari, and Ibn Khaldun, who gave history its foundation, the chain has never been broken. And so, the story continues. Each generation inherits not just the events of the past, but the responsibility to remember them, to learn from them, and to carry them forward. Because history is not just about what happened, it is about who we are. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories from the past. Your support helps us bring forgotten history back to life. On-screen elements, while narration plays, channel logo, branding in the center or corner, text, subscribe for more historical documentaries. Icons for like, share, comment, suggested video thumbnails on the side.